Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoding Downtowns, brought to you by Vistity. In this podcast, we dive deep with leaders from business improvement districts across the nation, revealing the strategies that are shaping the future of urban development and economic growth. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the podcast. It's Jamie Schwartzman. Today I have a treat. We're going to be going to Rochester, Minnesota. We're speaking to the Destination Medical Center. They're a district that was formed around the Mayo Clinic. Today's guest is Patrick Seeb. He's the executive director, and I'm excited to learn more about the Destination Medical Center district. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm great, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. Hey, tell us a little bit about Destination Medical Center and how it relates to downtown Rochester.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of your podcast. Learn a lot about cities across America, and it is really incredible wealth of information. And what I realize is you talk to one city and you know one city, but every city has its own unique strategy. Destination Medical Center really was born of this idea that Rochester is home to Mayo Clinic and its global headquarters, the number one healthcare provider in the world. And it intended to grow. Mayo Clinic intends to grow, and it needed a city to grow with it. And we were born of the idea of how can we, the state of Minnesota, the city of Rochester, Olmsted County, come together to help Rochester grow to keep pace with the number one healthcare provider in the world.
Fascinating. So tell us a little bit about how your organization is structured, how you're financed.
Yeah, so we have a very interesting structure. So we were enabled by state legislation that committed to investing $585 million of public infrastructure support to Rochester over a 20-year period, a lot of money over a 20-year period, governed by a public-private partnership, and then our organization being the staff that supports that effort. So we have a board of directors whose job it is to steward $585 million, believe it or not, lots of money coming into this small district, but necessary to allow Rochester to grow. And at the same time, to proactively go out and recruit investment into Rochester, because we see $585 million as a catalyst for $5.5 billion worth of private investment.
So give us a sense of what, some of the money is being earmarked for so far.
Sure. So we've been around 10 years. We've been in business for 10 years. And over that time, we've seen more than $2 billion worth of private development happening, hospitality, housing, life science innovation. And tools that we've used around public infrastructure has been what you normally think of for public infrastructure, like streets and sewers and water systems that need to be upgraded to allow for the growth, but also the public space amenities necessary to create a very human-centric city, one that's attractive for visitors from around the world, patients from around the world, talent from around the world, and the local community. So public spaces, and very excited to begin construction next year on the first electric bus rapid transit system in greater Minnesota. So a 3-mile bus rapid transit system running through connecting neighborhoods, the downtown, entertainment, jobs, and services on this 3-mile corridor. So examples might be the underground infrastructure, the public spaces, the amenities of public spaces, and transit systems, including this Link bus rapid transit.
I see. And then all of the development, this is all happening in the downtown area through infill?
So it's amazing to appreciate. Mayo Clinic occupies 30 or 40 buildings in the downtown. So it's not a one clinic or one hospital. It is number one healthcare provider in the world, the largest hospital in the country, a research collection of research buildings that handles more than $1 billion worth of research every year, and education system. So it is a cluster of buildings that serve for research, education, and patient and clinical care, all of which are largely in the downtown. So this collection of this campus of buildings and 40,000 employees in the downtown that have to come to work every day because they're patient facing and they're hands-on service providers in most cases.
And are you seeing a residential community begin to, flourish in the downtown area?
Yeah, so that's really been a new thing that's been happening in Rochester. I would say in some ways Rochester missed what began in the early 2000s in a lot of cities with residential development in the downtown, but that has really taken off in spades right now here in downtown. So we have, I think, probably 2,000 new downtown residents since in the past decade, and much more to come. Nearly 100% occupancy of most of the downtown housing units. People want to live downtown. They want to be close to their jobs, to entertainment. Yeah.
These would you characterize these as, new ground up mixed use developments or adaptive reuse, or a little bit of a blend of both?
Mostly ground up new developments, turning a lot of what were surface parking lots into tax generating new developments. Mostly, the sort of 5/1 kind of podium style development, but we've had some full on commercial grade construction housing development as well. So we're seeing kind of a mix of that. And of course, the idea of more, people living downtown, you consume 7 times as much, spend 7 times as much in the downtown as a downtown worker. So, the impact of downtown residents on the downtown economy is so significant. Downtown workers, super important as well, but downtown residents really change the experience.
Are you seeing, is there still infill opportunities and other lots that are developable?
Oh, absolutely. So there is, and I think what has happened is, sometimes you walk by a surface parking lot every day and you don't appreciate that it doesn't have to be a surface parking lot. It could be more than that. And so you get a developer who says, hey, I can do something with this. And then it starts to unfold, because then people start to appreciate, well, if they could do that there, why aren't we doing that here? And so there are, I would say we probably had 20 or 30 blocks of surface parking lot in the downtown, and about half of which have been redeveloped.
So, Patrick, tell me a little bit about you and about, what it's like to be executive director of this organization.
Yeah, so it's been an incredible opportunity. I moved here 10 years ago from St. Paul, where I led the redevelopment efforts of St. Paul and the Mississippi River in St. Paul. So reconnecting St. Paul to the Mississippi River. But I will tell you this, I began my career as a registered nurse. So my professional career began as a registered nurse. And for reasons I won't go into because the podcast doesn't have enough time, I made the segue into city development. So really moving to Rochester in this role has been a sort of connection of my early career in healthcare and my more recent career in urban development, and really connecting those two. We have a really incredible team at DMC, and so my job is to support them and support their success. We have a great relationship with the city of Rochester. Nothing happens in a city without the city structure, and we have a great partnership with the city. The mayor of Rochester has been an incredible advocate and a local and national leader on energy and sustainability and equity, and she brings really strong advocacy to our work. So it's been a great experience, and we have a great team, and my job is to support the team and support the board and its vision.
So let's talk a little bit about economic development and, beyond sort of stewarding these dollars and funneling them into the right infrastructure projects. How does the organization play a role in supporting economic development?
Yeah, we began with, and in fact, the state law required that we have a community adopted development plan. So we had a starting point that said, here is what we hope to accomplish over 20 years. So in 2015, there was a DMC development plan that was created that was not exactly a roadmap, but clearly a picture of where we wanted to go as a community and how we might prioritize the use of resources to achieve that. And then we update it every 5 years. We did in 2020, sort of in the middle of COVID. So you can imagine how that was influenced. And now we're updating it again in 2025. But that roadmap told us about what we would need in terms of new housing, understanding that housing is infrastructure. Having places to live in a growing community is infrastructure. So what do we need to do to grow the number of housing units? How do we attract developers? How do we solve for their challenges? How do we help them succeed? Probably key to our success long-term is our efforts around attracting life science companies, med tech companies, bio companies to Rochester. And we are here in Rochester, part of something known as Medical Alley. Minnesota is known for its medical device and medical technology, and we are part of this Medical Alley ecosystem. We're, arm in arm with Mayo Clinic, the #1 healthcare provider, leading innovator in this space. And so our job is to tell that story to life science companies who are early startups looking to get a foothold, looking to develop their idea and develop their products. So that's another big part of our economic development strategy.
Tell me about some of the challenges that you guys are trying to face right now in the district.
Well, the challenges we have are challenges of opportunity. So we have a lot of construction that is going to be happening. Mayo Clinic recently announced a $5+ billion expansion of their campus. That is the largest development in Minnesota's history.
Wow.
Largest development in Minnesota's history, $5 billion expansion that is going to be transformative as they envision the future of patient care delivery and this sort of merging of digital healthcare that we're all coming to see and appreciate, outpatient services and acute clinical, and this physical environment they're creating is really going to transform how people experience their healthcare. $5 billion expansion. That's a lot of construction that will be happening. The bus rapid transit system I mentioned, we began construction. It's about an 18-month period of construction and commissioning. A lot of construction in this thing. This is basically a one square mile geography I'm talking about, where I'm talking about $5+ billion worth of new construction. So imagine the efforts we have to do around logistics and supply chain and moving traffic and helping people understand to navigate, how to help businesses thrive during this period of transformation, not just survive, but how can they actually thrive during this period of transformation? That's really the opportunity in front of us. But of course, it's a big challenge, and doing it right is going to be a big challenge, but one we're up for.
Let's talk a little bit about data and the kind of data that you're tracking, and not only the data you're tracking, but what is the data that you keep your eyes on most, and what does Mayo care about most, and what do investors care about most in your district?
Yeah, so we have some really clear targets associated with our original development plan around job growth, around capital investment, private capital investment, around net new tax revenue, around community participation in planning and development, and in the experience. How do people rate their experience? So those are sort of the broad metrics that we are using collectively as a community. And we know we are well on pace with job growth here in Rochester. So we set a target of 30,000 new jobs over 20 years, and we track that. But we're also digging deeper into saying, how many of these jobs, or how can we ensure that that our 25% of our population, which identify as a minority population, how do we make sure that they have a chance to prosper during this period of incredible prosperity? So we have strategies in place to ensure minority contractors have construction opportunities with all of this construction going on. We have strategies to ensure that first-time developers or development companies owned by minority communities or veterans or disabled have an opportunity to participate in the development opportunities. So we are very intentional about not only 30,000 new jobs, sure, but how do we ensure that those jobs are proportionately going to people of color? We have strategies around carbon reduction. So how do we do development that reduces the carbon footprint over time? So these are some of the metrics that we track on a regular basis that are important to our board and important to the community.
Tell me a little bit about how you're telling the story of Destination Medical Center. And, do you think that your storytelling tactics are changing with the new communications?
Yeah. So we want to be on your podcast as often as we can, Jamie, as a platform. Certainly platforms like this are really important because it, part of our story is intended for people who, are more sensitive, care about where they're investing. So we talk to investors who typically are not focusing on cities of 130,000 people. So we have to position ourselves as, yes, we're 130,000 people, but we're a very special community of 130,000 people. We are home to Mayo Clinic, home to jobs that pay well, home to international visitors who have different types of needs. So part of our story is to how do we distinguish ourselves from other cities of 130,000 people? How are we unique? And also, how are we part of this medical alley that I talked about, this region that includes Minneapolis, St. Paul, a very powerful, economically strong, vibrant region. So telling that story and certainly getting out in front of people. We had a couple of years where we couldn't travel, as you know, but people are returning to more of a face-to-face storytelling. They want to look people in the eye. They want to hear from people. But certainly our digital platforms, critically important as well.
How do you see, digital dashboards, data visualization? Do those types of, technologies play a role in you telling these stories?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, making it simple for people to absorb information. We know that the attention span is very short for people. There's a lot of information coming at them. And so our job is to simplify, make it easy to grasp, understand directionally where we're going, understand the pace at which we're going. Super important. We work with a firm out of St. Paul called Visible Cities, which specializes in helping with data visualization for urban environments. Urban 3, Joe Manicosi out of Asheville, North Carolina, not to plug any particular company, but we in fact do have relationships with companies who specialize in data visualization to help us do that. And we have found it to be really impactful.
Terrific. Hey, let's look ahead at the next one short year. Okay, we're here. It's August 2024. I want to imagine, 1 year, it's going to go fast. What's on the table right now? What are we working on? And what do you want to get done in the next one short year?
Yeah, so we work, and I really love that question because, a lot of our work is preparing for 2030, preparing for the long term. And we are, laying the groundwork for so much of that. But people want to know what's the here and now, what can we expect, and rightfully so. So we're going to see the shaping up of the bus rapid transit system, something that I know already what it's going to look like, and I know what it's going to feel like. Coming from a larger market where light rail transit has been so successful, I already know what that's going to look like and feel like. A lot of our community hasn't experienced it and can't really imagine what role it will play. I think as that foundations start going in for that, people will begin to see how can that affect my life in a positive way. And oftentimes it's not until it's built and fully operational that people really say, oh, I get it. I can use this. I can use this as an option. So a lot of public space improvements that we're doing have now are nearing completion. These are ones that we started working on 3-4 years ago that are now completed and activated. People saying, hey, the downtown is much more livable, much more friendly than I remember it to be. It's a place I want to bring my kids. So these are the things that I think over the next year, we're going to see the completion of a lot of work in progress, and we're going to start to see kind of the bigger vision formed out a bit more. And so people will, I think, will maybe have a better appreciation of what the city is going to look like in years to come.
Terrific. Hey, let's play make-believe now, and let's pretend that you have been handed a magic wand, and you can use it to cast a spell to transform the vitality of downtown Rochester and Destination Medical Center. Patrick Seeb, how would you use your magic wand?
Well, we do have magic happening in Rochester, so I don't need a magic wand because it's already happening. And so, I think of myself, and I've been doing this kind of work now for 25 plus years, and I think that there is this combination of incrementalism coupled with what we refer to as big moves, sort of the generational investment. So not everything has to be a generational investment, but having a generational investment, and in our case, it's this Mayo Clinic expansion called Bold Forward Unbound, coupled with these incremental investments that are happening, like public spaces like Discovery Walk or Peace Plaza or the Aquatic Center at Soldiers Field. We're going to be putting investment into the riverfront. Now, they are $10 million improvements, $20 million improvements, nothing to sneeze at, but they are the sort of incremental pieces that make up this. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. And you have Bold Forward Unbound, like is the centerpiece of this jigsaw puzzle, and all of these other pieces together is what really creates the picture. And our job, in many ways, is to identify and develop those adjacent puzzle pieces that make for this beautiful picture. And that's really what we're doing here in Rochester.
Tell me, along with Bold Forward Unbound, tell me a little bit about Discovery Square and what that project is.
Yeah, so one of our beliefs is that Rochester has this opportunity to leverage its healthcare and scientific innovation. There is, as I may have mentioned, there is $1 billion worth of research that happens at Mayo Clinic. And Mayo Clinic is perhaps the best in the world at what's referred to as bench to bedside. So how quickly can you get the science into helping patients and serving patients, bench to bedside? What we really want to develop is the greater strength around commercializing that innovation and that technology so it can serve not only patients here in Rochester, but people who need it around the world. And so Discovery Square is emblematic of the strategy to get the science and the scientists to work outside of Mayo to connect with the private sector to develop those technologies for commercialization, for manufacturing, for distribution, and getting it out to the much broader public.
So is this an incubator or a business park, or tell me?
Yeah, so you might think of it, it's a collection of buildings in which there are Mayo Clinic scientists, in which the University of Minnesota Rochester has student learning environment, in which there are new small startups who are oftentimes coming from other parts of the world who need a footprint in the United States. So it's a collection of buildings that is home to scientists, researchers, students, and technology development. And so it is this idea that if you bring that kind of constellation of people together, that 1 + 1 = 3, if I could say.
So really a cross-pollination of, interesting discoveries and also with the business community.
Yeah, I love it. Cross-pollination is exactly the right term.
Well, Patrick, you have a very enviable set of conditions in your district.
We do, absolutely. We are, and I don't take credit for this because I wasn't here when the initiative was founded, but the sort of genius behind it, the idea of this 20-year time arc. So it's not a one and done, and it's not one project. It's a 20-year time horizon. There are checks and balances in place, a governance system that ensures that the state's interests are considered with the check and balance with the city council and the mayor. So the local interests are also. So there is nothing that happens that isn't done together and in collaboration. There is this notion that big things will happen if you take small bites at it and you are intentional about it. So yeah, we are resourced and proving proving out the concept every day. Just recently, there was a report by the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development that, in fact, Rochester has become the economic driver of the state of Minnesota in terms of job growth. So it is, we have a really good thing going on here in Rochester, and people are taking notice. We attract talent. I mean, with our team includes people from who moved here to work in this environment, from myself from the Twin Cities, other team members from Wyoming and Utah and Iowa. I mean, people understand, and just as you said, we are an enviable situation, and we are attracting talent that wants to work in this domain.
Hey, Patrick, before we wrap up, tell us how people can keep their eyes on Destination Medical Center and you in particular.
Well, we have a presence, of course, on all of the socials. LinkedIn, probably the most common place. dmc.mn is our website, and we have a newsletter, and we'd love to have people subscribe. And we'd love to be connected, as I said, on LinkedIn. Patrick Seeb on LinkedIn, DMC on LinkedIn. So we would love to connect with your audience and listeners on a more granular basis.
Patrick, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This has been a really interesting conversation.
Well, Jamie, thanks for having me. And again, I really appreciate the conversations you've had with people across the country, and I'm glad to be part of your mix.
Great. And a big thank you also to our listeners for joining us for another episode of Decoding Downtowns. Also like to take a shout out to Vistity for sponsoring the podcast today. And until we meet up again, keep exploring and innovating in your district. Thank you for joining us today for Decoding Downtowns. If you've enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's brought to you by Vistity, the leading geospatial visualization platform for data-driven decisions. Stay connected, stay informed, and let's continue to shape the future of our cities together. Until next time, I'm Jamie Schwartzman.